Everyone to the City Council work session from May 18th. First item on the agenda is the COVID-19 response update.
Mr. Mayor, good evening, members of the council. Let's review where we are with COVID, and then perhaps at the end we can talk about the future of the council meeting COVID updates. So this is our usual sequence of slides showing data on COVID in Colorado and then Weld County. This first slide shows the trend for Colorado. This is new cases per week. And we can see that while we had seen the trend creep back up for Colorado, it has actually gone back down in the right direction, hopefully continuing that trajectory. For Weld County, that solid line is the one, the gray line is the one that we look at most. This shows a similar trend, certainly to the state. We had that same pattern of cases creeping up several weeks ago. Then they fell, and level for last week in terms of new cases. Again, we're hopeful that those cases do keep going down. This is our slide that shows, I think, the more critical data about fatalities due to COVID and hospitalities due to COVID. Hospitalization. Hospitalities will be a new thing. Hospitalization due to COVID. The solid line is the cumulative pattern for fatalities in Weld County. We can see that we are just approaching the 250 level there. The curve definitely has leveled off over the past couple months, but of course we hope that continues to level off even more. I think good news in the last couple weeks for hospitalizations is that while that trend had been going up again, it seems to have reverse course over the last 2 weeks. So that's a positive trend there, although still concerning certainly that we have those hospitalizations. Even though the state has lifted their dial, these are metrics that we have been watching, so I thought it was probably useful to still continue just looking at what those trends are in terms of positivity rates, cases per 100,000 for a 7-day period, and new hospitalizations. From this slide, you can see that over the past week, these trends have been growing a little more positive. Positivity rates are down a little bit to 6.73%. Cases per 100,000 had been on the way up, but as we've been saying, are hopefully on their way down to 612, and the new hospital admissions per day rounded is still around 1. So our operational update. There has been a lot of news in the past week, as I'm sure the council is aware. On Thursday and Friday of last week, both the CDC, Centers for Disease Control, and the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment cited the increasing vaccination rates overall in the state, and I think across the country for the CDC, and updated their policies in the case of the CDC and their orders in the case of CDPHE. The CDPHE actually went a little farther than the CDC in removing all of its masking requirements, except for several institutional settings like hospitals and prisons and schools, where I think the population concentrations are very close. But for all other settings, the governor announced that their guidelines are no longer requirements or guidelines, or they are guidelines or suggestions. So I can say that for most people in the organization, that was received well. We lifted our, I guess, pursuant to the CDPHE updated guidelines, we lifted our masking requirements here at the city last Friday. We're also tapering off or ending our other COVID protocols almost entirely. You might have noticed that more than a week ago now, I guess 2 weeks ago, the health screening at the pre-entry health screening had been terminated. We're also reintroducing or encouraging employees to meet in person to the extent they're comfortable. We're using our conference rooms again. I think I would characterize, as you may have seen my message, encouraging some return to some normalcy. I know there's questions with that term, but also with a heavy dose of respect and sensitivity for those who are just not as comfortable, given the state that COVID is still with us. So I think we're on our way to hopefully, if those trends stay on the direction they are, to getting back to that normalcy, and you'll be seeing that here more and more. We are having an ongoing conversation with Judge Stewart about potentially different needs in the municipal courts. I was told about 15 minutes ago that I acted hastily. I was excited to take the tape off some of the CD here, but apparently we're going to go a little slower with our court operations in that regard. And then we are also ramping up to full capacity for recreation events. As council's aware, we just haven't had the part-time staff on board. It's taking a little longer to hire people, get them on, but we're eager to have them on so that we can resume a more full calendar of events with larger groups of people gathering here in this building. But there is a significant effort involved in takedowns and setups for those different events. So we want to make sure that we aren't overcommitting. We want to be able to deliver on what we promise. With that concludes my report. I would mention that I've heard from a couple council members that they think it might be time to stop having these updates at council meetings, unless there's objection. Well, certainly I would take council's direction on that point. In any case, unless there's objection, I would continue with my email updates on a weekly basis, keeping council informed of the trends and any updated organizational impacts. So that's all I have on that item, Mayor.
Thanks. Questions or comments for Jim or answer? Are you guys all good with emails?
I'm good with emails. Yep. That's great.
Emails it is, Jim. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Next item on the agenda is the auditor presentation for the 2020 financial audit. Turn it back to you guys.
Thank you, Mayor. As I'm joined by our Finance Director, Jackie Trout, and our auditors, our auditor tonight, Christine McLeod, who is here to represent our new auditing firm of Haley and Company. This is our first audit. We're very pleased to have new auditors on board. I think I can speak for, at least from staff perspective, that we think they did a very good job and worked with staff well and raised appropriate questions and worked through, I think, a lot of the first year audit types of issues that may arise. So with that, I'll just remind council that the auditor really does work for the council, not for the staff. So I always think it's important that you hear the report directly from the auditors. That's how it works. And if you have questions or other follow-up, please ask those questions, and we can help facilitate that for you. Before we start, I'd also like to just give some thanks, because I always forget if I don't do it when I think of it, to the finance team who works closely with the auditors. First, under Jackie's leadership, this team works, as I said, closely with the auditors. If you wouldn't mind taking a moment, because I know they're here, just introducing our team. That would be
Oh, perfect. We all work in the basement, so we're all a little uncomfortable out of the basement. Oh, perfect. We all work in the basement, so we're all a little uncomfortable. Gallegos is our accountant who focuses a lot on our grants as well. In the back, we have Tom Krogh, who is our newest. You all may not have had a chance to see Tom yet. Jerry Hubbard. And then in the back, we have Elsa Caro as well, our finance supervisor. So this is our whole finance team that worked so hard with us. So thank you.
Thank you.
that. I will turn it over to Christine for the auditor's report.
Great. Thank you, Jim, and thank you for having me here tonight to present the audit and just the required communications. Okay, I'm not sure. Do I just press
Yep,
the
right. It's actually the right button.
the right button? Oh, I got to go back. So I appreciate you having me here. As Jim said, this is the first year that we have been your auditors. It's been great to work with Jackie and her team. They have provided us with all the information that we needed to get through the audit efficiently and effectively, and so we really appreciate that from our clients, and it's been fabulous to work with you guys this year as well. So we were able to get through the audit, and I'm here tonight just to report the results of the audit to you. There are required communications to governance, and so that's my goal here tonight, is just to kind of give you an overview of the way that things went, what the audit report, the opinion letter, how that's stated this year, and then also just some brief financial highlights. I'll talk about just how we scope the audit, our methodology, just give you a little bit of a background of how the audit fieldwork is performed. Again, the required communications, go over a few financial highlights, and then just touch base on some new accounting pronouncements, some general observations, and then any comments you might have or questions for me, I can answer those at the end. So the first thing, just talking about how we scope the audit, our methodology, the process, what an audit is. We come in and we look at the underlying books and records to make sure that your financial statements are materially stated, and there's a fair presentation of the net position and the statement of activities. And so we, just so that we came in and we were able to perform that fieldwork. We did not have any issues. We are issuing a clean, unmodified opinion on the financial statements. We had no cause for concern about material weaknesses or significant deficiencies. And that would be something that we might find during the course of our audit that would cause us to be concerned that there might be any kind of material misstatement in the financials. What we do is we look at all the accounts, and we look at them from a risk-based approach. We take a risk-based approach. We come in and we look at all the accounts in the general ledger, and we determine which of those might have the highest risk, and we tailor our procedures surrounding really focusing on those accounts that are of high risk. And we will also scope out those accounts that are material to the statements and focus on those. We look at certain fraud risks, focus a lot of times on revenues. Those are generally going to be of higher risk, and we tailor our procedures around there. We do not test internal controls, but we gain an understanding of the internal controls so that we can perform our procedures, and we can tailor our procedures just knowing what controls you already have in place. We try to vary our procedures from year to year, and this year there was a single audit where we looked at compliance with federal programs and issued opinions on compliance with over financial reporting and compliance over the federal programs. So there's a couple of different opinions there as well, and there was nothing significant that was found. Everything was in order there. As far as required communications, in regards to accounting policies, there were no significant new accounting policies to note. You would see those in the notes to the financials if there were. In regards to any involved in the financial statement preparation, there's a couple. One is pension. There's a net pension asset, and that's determined through actuarial calculations, and those are estimates just kind of based on market performance, and so those are provided to you from those plans. You're part of multi-employer plans, and those actuarial calculations are provided and then reflected in the financial statements based on those estimates. And then depreciable lives of capital assets. So we take a look at the lives that you're depreciating your capital assets, that you're using to depreciate your capital assets, and make sure that those are reasonable. In regards to any audit adjustments, we had no audit adjustments this year. I think there was a prior year audit adjustment that we just needed to book so that everything could be moved forward from the prior year, but nothing this year that we discovered. No disagreements with management. And then in regard, you'll see in the report, the management report to governance in that letter that we did during our fieldwork process. We noticed that there were some rates in the, I think, water that had not been updated in the system, and so the billings were not reflecting the updated rates. But it was only, I think, in water, it was not materially significant to the financial statements. And it was brought forth to management, and they've responded, and I know that they're working, to make sure that there's procedures in place so that those bills are reviewed whenever a rate increase is put in. We'll go just to some brief financial highlights. And this will show you just kind of graphical year over year from 2019 to 2020. Net position is just an indication of how the financial health of the city. And so when you look, you want to see a growth in net position. And you can see here that there has been growth from 19 to 20 in both the governmental net position and the business type net position each year. Moving on to the sales and use tax revenues from year to year, you can see that there is an increase from about 9.9 million to about 12.9 million year over year. And that's largely due to the 1% increase in the sales tax to fund road maintenance. Looking at investments, a lot of times you like to know where your, those assets are being invested in your investments. And you can see that got about 42% in CDs, 38% in Colo Trust, about 12% in U.S. instruments, 6.2% in money markets, about 1.5% in U.S. Treasuries, and then a small percentage, less than 1%, in a CC. Looking at your long-term liabilities, I know generally a lot of times you will see those liabilities decreasing as you're paying off debt. This year there was an increase due to the CWR PDA loan. So you'll see an increase there offset slightly by payments. So, and then the principal that's due next year is that 1.9. In regards to any new accounting pronouncements, just general observations, comments, there are some upcoming accounting pronouncements, GASB 87, which is in regards to leases, that will be effective for 2022, and that will recognition of assets and liabilities for certain leases that were previously expensed as incurred. GASB 89 is accounting for the interest that's incurred during construction. That's effective for 2021, requires that interest costs to be expensed. Any option to capitalize that interest. And then GASB 91, conduit debt obligations, that's also effective for 2022. We will work with Jackie and her team as those approach, just to make sure that we're getting everything presented correctly in accordance with the standards as those pronouncements come into effect. I just, again, thank you to the finance team. It's been great working with you guys, and we were able to really, work through this audit very effectively and efficiently tonight in person and presenting the results of the audit. So, I'm happy to take any questions if anyone has any.
You guys?
Nope. Mayor, that's all. Thank you.
Questions for the auditor or Jackie?
Thank you.
Comments? No, it's new auditor, same result. You guys always do it. Thank you very much. Nice to meet you.
Thank you. You as well. Have a good evening.
Next item is the Master Plan Housing Chapter Review. Back to you, Jim.
Thank you, Mayor. The next installment of our master plan work review by the City Council. As Council has become accustomed, this work has been generated by the Master Plan Steering Committee and the city staff and some specialized consultants in this area. This is the housing chapter of the master plan. As I mentioned, this has been developed by the Master Plan Steering Committee, of which I know our mayor and Councilmember Mortensen serve on that committee. This has also been reviewed by the Planning Commission, and I presume recommended for Council's. So with that, I'll turn it over to Ann Bess Johnson, who can give an overview of this work.
Fantastic. Thank you. Mr. Mayor, members of City Council. So again, this is our housing chapter. And lots of discussion, great robust discussion was had on housing. Housing and the economic development chapter are closely related. And then both of those two chapters, there are going to be several other chapters then that touch and overlap as we go through the review. So there were 4 main points that were made as our top housing needs in the city. We just need a more robust, diverse portfolio of housing types in the city, whether that be more entry-level homes, huge gap of, you've heard the term called middle housing, big gap. And then there's also an opportunity to then offer some of those higher end housing products in Evans as well. So there's, of course, we have 2 points up here that talk about affordable or attainable housing. And the reason why there are 2 points dedicated to that discussion topic is because there are lots of other types of services that accompany attainable housing that we have to look at. It's not that we're giving more focus on one than the other, it's just that there are more issues that go along with attainable housing. So again, the 3rd bullet is diverse housing options to accommodate evolving needs of families. When you now become an empty nester, you might want less space. When you now have more children, you might need more space, and Evans needs to have, again, that portfolio to offer a wide range of housing to meet the needs of a growing and changing family, or even an individual. Housing resources for special needs populations as well, whether that be individuals with access or mobility needs, whether that be, you know, a parent needing to live with you, somebody to live with you to take care of an individual that needs extra help. So the type of product could be like an accessory dwelling unit, or can you have more duplexes, more triplexes integrated into regular single family neighborhoods. So those were our top housing needs. And so in order to meet the results that we're looking for, there are 4 main principles for this housing chapter. Now I'll read what we did last time on water. I won't go into the details on each of the strategies, but more ask you, do you agree or not? So the 4 principles for housing is Evans is going to focus on new housing opportunities at all price points. And then Evans will increase access to quality rental options and housing resources for low-income renters and special needs populations. Evans will focus on new amenities and quality of life to promote life cycle housing opportunities. And again, when we interviewed the developers and the builders to give us their input on what they see from Evans, this was one of their biggest sticking points, is we want to see Evans reinvesting in itself and have those amenities so that they could attract more individuals into Evans to buy their product. And then Evans will ensure a flexible zoning code to allow for creative housing solutions. So again, whether that be that mixed-use development, duplexes, single family housing, or the accessory dwelling unit, but come up with some creative solutions for our planning toolbox. So moving on now to the individual principles. The first principle is focusing on new housing opportunities at all price points. And then we have the why statement. It's because affordable ownership is an asset to Evans. But the city needs that larger middle income that's missing throughout northern Colorado, throughout Colorado and probably the nation. So it's not just unique to Evans, but how are we going to address that? And then the city should encourage the development of more middle market homes. So these are the strategies then that we are proposing to get there. And do you have any questions about these 4 strategies? None? We're going to go on then to the last two strategies for this particular principle. Again, water plays a key component to any type of development and especially housing. And then we do have that down payment assistance program, and we'll continue forwarding folks to that program as well. Are there any questions on these two strategies? Then moving on to Principle 2. So Principle 2 is Evans is going to increase access to quality rental options and housing resources for low-income renters and special needs populations. And our why statement is seen on this slide as well, is that we currently do offer relative affordability compared to our surrounding neighborhoods or surrounding communities. And a shortage of quality rental units and that are affordable to very low income households. And then there are special needs populations in Evans and the surrounding area, and that they may have different mobility and access concerns than the other citizens, and so we need to work with all residents. Moving on to Principle 2, the first set of principles or strategies is encourage that development of housing that serves very low income. So 30% of AMI, or the area median income, is $25,000 in Evans. That's a target market that needs access to quality rental housing. So continue to develop relationships with regional housing providers, evaluate public land availability that might be suitable for that type of development. So are there any questions on this particular principle and the strategies? On to the final slide on Principle 2 is just if we do decide that this is going to be an important venture that we'd like to look at, taking a look at housing near transportation and mobility corridors, working with local nonprofits, continue to partner with United Way folks. So are there any questions on these 5 bullets on Principle 2? Okay, so then Principle 3, focus on amenities and quality of life to promote life cycle housing opportunities. And the why statement is that really we need to bolster our partnership with schools, looking at parks and open space and other amenities so that we can attract those higher end builders and we can attract more middle builders so that they want to come and see that we're almost a partner in their marketing ability so that they can market their products and know that Evans is going to provide them with good quality amenities as well. And under Principle 3, there are several strategies. So some of those are investing in placemaking, whether that be giving walking tours of our historic neighborhoods, just building community pride in what those wonderful stories that our historic neighborhoods hold for the citizens, creative design. Right now, the Master Plan Steering Committee just completed culture, education, recreation, and tourism. And so a lot of that chapter will feed into this chapter as well on how do we develop that and continue to promote Evans. Promote the walkable neighborhoods and opportunities to integrate, access points to regional trails and parks. And I know that the city of Evans probably won't ever really truly be interested in national register designation or even state designation. We might not even want to have a local preservation ordinance, but we have a wonderful historic building stock in East Evans and even some post-war era housing on the west side. Wonderful that we should be celebrating and communicating to the public that are interested in history about our wonderful history. So Rec did a fantastic job last year with some of the historic tours, and why not have walking tours? That's an idea. So are there any questions on these strategies?
I just have a comment, or just something that popped up, because I know that one of our neighboring city has a historic society. Are we able to tap into that society for the city of Evans, or is it exclusive to that specific city? I don't know if we have some sort of partnership, because I think one of the things would be great if we do have historical homes. I know previously where I used to live, they give you a plaque, and as long as you follow specific criteria for that specific era of home. So it would be nice to see if we had something of, and I'm sure that also brings pride. It's like my home was built in 05 or something, and there's a history, and also there's preservation, because they provide incentives to assist with the upkeep of the home.
Right. So Evans can definitely look into that. I know if you're on the National Register of Historic Places or the State Register of Historic Places, that sometimes there are limitations that they place on how you can redevelop your property. So those types of limitations have to be carefully balanced with the economic reality of making improvements to that property. And there's a very fine balance that has to occur there. But we can definitely look into something local and giving plaques, giving recognition. That's wonderful. We don't have to be overly regulatory to encourage individuals to reinvest in their property. Are there any other questions on this particular principle? All right, principle 4, this is the final principle for housing. We want to have our flexible zoning codes to allow for creative housing solutions. And the why statement is, we want to have a diversity of residents, and there is a desire to have a diverse housing stock, and just to have, maybe that is very small lots, and they're clustered together. Maybe it is that transfer of development rights program. Perhaps it is the integration of multifamily in a single family residential area. So there's lots of different ways that we can densify. There are lots of ways where we can have still very open spaces, maybe do a preservation type of development where we're clustering. Expanse of land is open. So just make sure that our zoning codes are open and flexible enough to accommodate creative housing options. So again, some of the items are discussed within these 5 points. Accessory dwelling units, patio homes for seniors, flexible zoning standards with flexible parking regulations to ease up on parking a little bit. That transfer development rights program that we hinted upon several other times as well. So are there any questions on this particular principle or these strategies so far?
I have one that I missed, I think. Number 2. Is a clarification, because I don't know how I even missed this on the other. But explore the option of a rental registration / licensing program paired with housing quality standards. Is that kind of like what they just did in Denver, where they're requiring properties to get licenses and all this, like extra licenses besides their business license? I just can't remember, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. It's a concept that is, that's open. We don't have a model that we'd want to follow, but there are some rental properties in Evans that could use some TLC. And so there are, our compliance officer has been called out on several where they're borderline maybe not habitable anymore. And so it's how do we balance the really nice properties that are rental with the others that need to be encouraged to bring their properties up to par so that all individuals have the right to a safe, healthy, stable home. So it's looking more at the one end of the spectrum to make sure that our citizens are safe, really then focusing on the other end of the spectrum.
Other comments?
That concludes staff's presentation. Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you.
yes, thank you.
Next item on the agenda is the 2021 Heritage Days update.
For this one, I'll be asking our recreation managers to join us. This is Jen Biamonte and Kristen Debo. And they've been working as part of our Heritage Day Committee, which is rounded out by our council members Spear and Councilmember Johnson, and also our maintenance manager, Scott Sandridge and Efren Rodriguez. They've been working, thinking about all the different factors that go into Heritage Day, from budgets to space to vendors to all those different things. And so I believe the committee has met a couple times and has had some recommendations for the council on what Heritage Day this year could look like. So the purpose of the work session, though, is for us to, hear from the council, take some direction on what Heritage Day to look like this year, given all those factors, so that we can start planning. Because I know that things like bands and fireworks need a lot of lead time. So we're interested in hearing your direction tonight. So at this time, I'll turn it over to Jen and Kristen, who can kind of present an overview of some of the considerations, and also I think a couple options that are recommended by the committee.
Clark and members of the City Council. Sorry. So I'll just climb over the table.
My name is Kristen, and I'm Recreation Programs Manager here for the City of Evans. We came to you last year, and we are back, but because we did not have an event last year, I'm going to take us back in time to 2 years ago for the 2019 Heritage Days event. As you remember, I'm sure, it was a 2-day event, spectacular fireworks show, entertainment on Friday evening, and then Saturday, parade, pancake breakfast, more entertainment, everything to celebrate our sesquicentennial anniversary. So $1.50, $150, very big numbers for 2019 event. Up on the slide, again, we did see this last year, but just to jog your memory, our total expenses, $54,000, rec staff, which as Jen and I were looking at today, kind of shocked us that we had 17 part-time event staff. Far from that this year, but staffing costs in there as well. And then the total $75,800 that was spent on the event. Sponsorships, we had $15,500. Now the barbecue, wristband, and pancake breakfast sales were based on the $1.50 tickets or fee that we charged for those events. The pancake breakfast does show $6.99. We had to pay for all of the meals. The $6.99 is what was made from those $1.50 tickets. So taking the expenses and the revenue, total event cost was $54,460.
That's me. I'm up. Okay, so after meeting with the committee, which as Jim mentioned, Councilwoman Spear and Councilwoman Johnson are on the committee, along with Kristen and myself and Scott Efren. And then new this year, we did ask Kurt, our risk manager, to join the committee as well. We just thought it would kind of help speed along the process of our meetings, having his input right away. So one of the options that we came up with was a Friday night event. So this would feel very much pretty event that we had back in 2019. So we're thinking 5 to 9 p.m. We'll have food trucks, we'll have a beer garden. We'll do 2 opening acts and a headliner, and then we'll close out the night with some fireworks. Just as a reminder, in 2019, we did have that $10,000 sponsorship for fireworks. And the going rate as the fireworks show is $1,000 a minute is a really great show. So that is always kind of the goal. And then again, for this year, if we do want to go this route, we will need to reach out to the fire district to gain their support to help us with that, which I'm sure they would be happy to help us with. So this is our recommended option from the committee to kind of look into those fees. So we would like to start the evening with a children-focused entertainment, whether that's a couple years ago we had, Woody and Paw Patrol was huge. They're also expensive. Or princesses or something like that. So something to get those families with the younger kiddos to the park. And then following that, we would do opening local entertainment, someone with a guitar and a great voice. That's always a good time. And then our headliner for the evening is Face Vocal Band. We had them on the docket for last year, and then they were gracious enough to push us forward. So we have them booked for Friday, September 17th. And that is that $4,000 line item. For fireworks, we're going to stick with about an 8-minute show with that $8,000 mark there. Stage and plant security guards, all of those logistics. The marketing and signage for the event, and then we needed some additional items for closures of the trails. We were kind of lacking on that in 2019, so just want to beef that up a little bit. And then we guesstimated some prep time for staff costs, as well as day of staff costs as well. And as you can see, the numbers for the staff are much lower than it was a couple years ago. And then within that, we did add a 10% contingency.
All right, option 2, I will be the Debbie Downer and share this one. No one likes to see no event, but the reason behind it, again, this was all done before changes came down last week. But the reasoning for it was the $20,000 that's currently budgeted is not going to get us the event that we had in 2019. So by holding off on an event this year and rolling that money into the budget for next year would then allow us to have hopefully twice the amount and get us closer to the financial standing where we were at in 2019 to offer that event. We would obviously have less need from the community right now for sponsorships, which is a sore topic right now. We are having some issues with that, and then also less strain on current low staffing levels. It's been mentioned a couple times before, but Parks and Recreation both are struggling. Parks a little bit more so with their part-time and seasonal staff. So we are nowhere near the capacities that we were at 2 years ago. Then it was brought to our attention that we should have some a la carte options, if you will, with, again, the changes that came last week and modifying for an extended event. We have taken all of these fees from the event 2 years ago and just basically copy and pasted it, if you will, from 19 into an event this year. Obviously, we would not be Sesquicentennial plus 2. It would just be Heritage Days with the feeling of that larger event that we did in 2019. Parade down to hand washing stations are all things for the extended event. Petting zoo down to pancake breakfast are underlined. because those were not originally included in the staff report that was sent out. We realized we did not have any kids activities, so it would just be coming to a park and staring at people, making your own fun. Again, these fees were from last year when we had reached out to get pricing for the event. Petting Zoo actually is a new one for us. We have used one in the past, but we found a different one. And they're actually a little bit more local too, up in Eaton. And so they have that fee of $600 for their critters. The Ninja Nation course is what's the show? American Ninja Warrior. But it's an all-encompassed course, start to finish.
And you can race, right?
Yes, there's 2 lanes, so you can race your friends, or you can be like my 4-year-old and just do it on your own. That one does include staffing from their company as well to assist for the event. Inflatables marked at $3,500. That right now is pricing for 3 different options. We had priced for a large slide, the hippo tug and dunk, which is like Hungry Hungry Hippos human style, a toddler zone, so an area for smaller kiddos. And then the pancake breakfast is listed on here because we do have to pay for it regardless of if we're charging the community members. We would like to, for a pancake breakfast, to charge for that so that we can cover that cost. However, historically, we have also provided a ticket or a coupon, if you will, for neighborhood or community members that live around the park at City Park, because we do kind of take over their area for that day. And then the prep staff cost, we did it too. And then day of. Now the day of staff cost is for additional 6 hours. Obviously, as we get a little more into the weeds and figure out exactly if there's an extended portion and what that looks like, that may change here or there. But as you can see, we only showed 8 part-time staff on that one. So a big difference from the 17 that we had in 2019. For all of these items, it is showing an additional $24,000. Like I said earlier, it is a la carte. It doesn't have to be all inclusive. You can pick and choose, but we did want to present options to you to provide as much information as we can.
I think one final comment I'd have, just to kind of tie a bow on this, is that, especially with the a la carte slide, which is great, I think, we can produce whatever event council would like. We do have, some considerations with staffing, but we also know that we need to reach out, and we'll be doing some volunteering of some other staff. I'll be wearing my volunteer shirt for the day if council would like. Right, exactly. So, we're committed to making this event what council would like it to be. I appreciate the committee's work because those factors into consideration, and at this point, we'd love to hear your thoughts. And I don't know if the mayor to.
Yeah, I was going to ask. I'm going to open it up, but I'd like to hear from the committee first, especially now that there's new information with COVID that you guys didn't have at your last meeting.
Right, correct.
So, Laura or Allie, whichever one.
I think, I know I was leaning to the one night on the Friday night thing. And in that, though, I would like to add the a la carte of the portalettes and the hand washing stations Friday night.
Those would be included, definitely.
All right, I didn't see them listed on Friday night, and I thought, well, we
definitely. She's like, thank you for my a la carte menu.
And I think I've mentioned to Jim about a sponsorship that we could probably utilize. I've been mentioning that sponsorship for like 15 different things, and I think it's still sitting on the table. So, anyways, so that's kind of where I was directing them at, just because I wanted to do something for the citizens. And that evening where we could spread out where it was at, the concerts were at, and everything, was kind of something I thought we could do with our staff too. So that's kind of where I was leaning in.
Hear from Allie first.
Yeah. I was, granted, like you mentioned, Mayor, we didn't have the information we have, especially with COVID now. So it's kind of exciting that things have changed from that meeting to now. I am definitely, well, let me kind of mention something. So we had our meeting, and I kid you not, like right after, it's like everyone knew about Heritage Days, and suddenly I was asked many questions. So what are we doing? I'm like, 4? I'm like, Heritage Days. And I'm like, oh, you're interested? I'm like, would you like something? Yes, we need something. I'm like, okay. I was like, well, actually, you should come to our meeting because we are speaking about that quite on the 18th. So anyway, with that said, I, at the moment with the information, it was kind of like either or, but now, and I like the one day too. For me, it's just because it's something, and I love the fact that it's on a Friday, and then we can have, face, and I know Jim will be in the front of that. But I'm also now, okay with even if granted, we have to think about, is it sustainable as well as, cost effective and monies and stuff. It would be nice if we do have some sponsorship that can trickle down from some places to assist. And with that said, if we can do the a la carte and something, maybe a second day, that would be great too. But I'm definitely for if we can do at least one day, I'm for that. I like having a band and having something awesome. And I think, our community would definitely love that as well.
Well, Mark and I talked about this yesterday in our strike team meeting. I'm all for going back to 2019 and throwing the whole thing and having a 2-day extravaganza. My hesitation, the reason I'm going to say we're not going to do that is staffing. It doesn't sound like we could do that. So where I would settle on it is one large big day. And I would say we'll do everything you had on your number one list and everything on there, except for maybe which to me sounds funner than hell, but the ninja course. But I'm glad you have these things on there, because when you guys were giving your presentation on number 1, if you go back to that slide, I wouldn't go to that. There would be nothing for my kids to do there.
Right.
We'd add all those things in there, and there'd be all kinds of things for a family to do there. We need to do something with our community to get over COVID. It's not over yet, but I'm hoping by that time we're past it. We moved on in life. And we need to do something for our community. Our budget's tight, so I'm going to ask this council, we need to throw more money at this. Sponsorships aren't there. I know they're having a hard time with the golf tournament as well. Hopefully that will turn around as well. Hopefully the sponsor that she's referring to and maybe a couple others will come through, but if not, we need to come through. Because people need something to do. We've been cramped up for a year and a half, and it's been horrible. And we need to do something for our community. So I get it, I want the 2 days. But I don't think staffing, we can do that, so let's have one big ass day. So I'm looking.
So move everything to Saturday then?
Sure, or, I forgot what you said, 4 to 9 or something on there.
5 to.
We had 5 to 9.
5 to 9.
Move it Friday night?
Yeah,
I'd like
even
Friday.
if we do it all in one night, that's cool, but I kind of like the parade. You can't really have a parade on a Friday, and you can't have a parade at 4 in the afternoon. So.
We could.
It's kind of weird.
It might
Yeah,
take
it would.
more.
Right, exactly. We're just going to parade around.
Laura, you
once.
can stay at your house and everyone will go by.
So I'm either for, and it's whatever you guys want to input in, a whole day Saturday with the parade and the breakfast and the food trucks and all that stuff. Or what they said Friday night and all that stuff, which obviously wouldn't have the parade or the pancake breakfast.
I do have a little bit of extra information to throw in then. I did reach out to our Sound and Stage, which is like that nice big stage that we had Friday night in 2019. They're not available Saturday evening, and Face is already booked Saturday evening. So I just want to throw that out there as we continue our discussion.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I was like, wait, Friday?
That changes my thoughts again.
Okay,
So,
sorry.
So if we had something scaled down, even like the petting zoo on Friday afternoon.
I'm sure we can find another stage. It would
Yeah.
just be
But,
standard.
and have it from 4 to 9 there, because I just know that the parade is a lot of work.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And as much as I'd like to have the parade, I just think that our staff.
Yeah. I like the parade because it shows off our community. It shows off Greeley Central. It shows off Greeley West. It shows off the Corvette Club. It shows off the Hispanic horse thing. I forget what that's called, but shows off everything that we are as a community. So that's why I like Spray. Go ahead, Jim.
One comment or one thought is that if you like the idea of, say, a whole Saturday, staff could go back and just explore the options for an alternative stage vendor and even check on other headliner bands that we might still get. Up to you, but we can come back to you in a month with that information, or even a couple of weeks.
We
Yeah.
don't want to time crunch it.
What's the time crunch? Absolute time crunch that we need to have everything.
We're 4 months out today or yesterday, depending on what day we land on. So, yeah, sooner the better. Yeah,
So-
we're planners.
But to get a band and a stage,
That's a great question.
you need
As much notice as possible. Yeah.
Well, let's hear from the rest of the council real quick on their ideas and then give
Okay.
you direction from there.
Yeah.
So, Allie, Tammy, what do you?
I would be open for one day, in probably the Friday night, and then, throw some of the extras on definitely for the children. That would be me personally, because staffing, again, that worries me the most. I know how it feels, especially when you're short people, so I wouldn't want to overextend anybody or make them feel nice. So for me, that's why I would say Friday night, throw on some of the extras, and I'm good to go.
You're for the half day idea still?
Yeah.
For it or whatever. Fred?
Well, I know the community would probably love to see a parade, and I'm sure there's a lot of people. I understand Green Central's already contacted us about whether or not we're going to have the parade, and the pancake breakfast is always a big draw for these things. But I'm with the mayor. I don't know how we could work it unless we just did. I don't know whether the pancake breakfast, if we just did that something like that on Saturday in the parade, if that would be enough to. I'm sure that to generate some money to cover some of that expense. And I think 2 years ago, I put up a grant for the pancake breakfast. I might consider that again.
Sounds like we might have our first sponsor.
Amanda?
I'm definitely in favor of a Friday night event. While I like the idea of a full Saturday, that's a lot of time and a lot of rework on things that seem to be done. I wouldn't mind, and granted I come from an area where we do have night parades, so I wouldn't mind exploring the option of having a parade in the evening, or just something around there. I like that idea. Like I said, where I come from, that's what we did. So country girls know what we're doing, I guess. No. So I think that would be a really fun option, because I think that is something that allows our community to show off a little bit. So if we can allow for that, fantastic. I do, to Mayor Rudy's point, also like the idea of adding some of the things. I would add them all, the inflatables, Ninja Course, and petting zoo, but I too have a crazy 4-year-old that'll just go. So for me, that would be the favorable option.
One thing I'd watch, and I'll get to you on the Friday night parade, which I would be for that too, is that in September, that's high school football.
I was actually just going to say, you probably have football Friday nights in September. But I mean, I would agree. I mean, when looking at this after we've discussed this more, I would think the Friday night event with the add-ons would be great. Instead of starting at 5, started at 4, maybe a little earlier. That way, there's more activities for the kids. They start earlier and everything. But I would be in favor. It would be nice to have a one big day event like on Saturday, do the parade and all that. But with staffing issues and everything, I think the Friday might be the best option. But I would just say start at 4 versus 5.
You got something else?
How about just doing the pancake breakfast and a parade on Saturday? for
To do Friday night and then
3 or 4 hours.
Saturday wake up and do a parade and pancake
Have
breakfast.
the parade and the pancake breakfast. That sound doable?
Well, we're gonna give them direction right now. We'll have them look at that and
You
see if it is
tell us.
doable.
Look at that and see if it's feasible.
Well, first, so I think we have direction Friday night is what the council seems to be in favor of, with as much as you can do.
Okay.
Like all that stuff up there, that still gives you your band and your stage, all the other stuff. All the all that stuff up there, yeah.
Friday.
hmm
So it's like similar to what we did with the hot air balloons. Remember, we had the inflatables on the side.
Yeah.
So it's in essence the same thing.
Well, the only reason I was hesitant on the Ninja Nation course was because of the way the balloons were awesome last year. But that line was forever, and then you're standing in line for an hour till you got on it.
I'm
And
not trying to be rude. I did actually ask them that last year, and they told me how many they could get through. So if you don't mind.
no, that'd be a
yeah.
great number. That was my hesitation. Was
Thank you for doing that.
instead of people walking around Heritage Days, they were in line for an hour.
Right.
For the
Yeah,
balloons.
exactly.
So-
That was a good learning experience. for
No, they
us.
were awesome if you got on them.
Yeah.
I saw Mayor Pro Tem ride it.
I think next time we'll try and
Yeah.
do some tickets or something.
While she's looking that up, so is that consensus? That's kind of where we are. Now we have to ask as a council, are we willing to pay for it until we get sponsors? I am.
I am.
I think we can find that money somewhere in our budget, and especially we can use some of our council budget for it.
Yeah.
I don't think we've used any of our council budget for this year. So,
And this is for our community.
exactly.
I'd rather
And
do
if-
council budget for
I would too. Well,
Yeah.
in some way, we'll find a way. I'll find a way to use CARES Act funding for it because I'm going to find a way to use that on everything.
Jackie's like,
I'll find a way. Jackie.
She's like, did the auditor leave?
And with the staffing issues, I mean, I wouldn't mind volunteering to help out staff and get it done.
And if we go back, so we're going to have you look at Friday, and then also look for the parade and the pancake breakfast.
Yep.
And I had mentioned this yesterday too. We can always reach back out to the chamber. They used to run the pancake. They used to run Heritage Days, and after that, they ran the pancake breakfast. So maybe that's something they would pick up.
We
On a-
we
on a
used a vendor for the first time in 2019 for the pancake breakfast,
Mhm.
and I don't think we'll ever go back.
I'm
It
saying
was
maybe the
amazing.
chamber will
We'll piece
front that
together.
money.
Okay,
Will front that money. Maybe that's their sponsorship. in
Yeah.
Heritage Days.
it's a great idea.
Or Fred can pay for it.
Well,
There you go.
I promised to donate my whole salary while I was a council member.
So
and
it sounds
I-
like council is up for Friday night.
Doing that.
Look into Saturday for the parade and pancake breakfast. We are willing to give you guys more money.
Perfect.
Still work on the sponsorships for sure.
Oh, we will.
But I know that's tough. You're looking for sponsorship for two different things. So pick and choose where that sponsor would be best used for you guys. And we'll cover the rest.
Perfect. Did you find it?
I did. Sorry, it took a little bit. Depending on the size, but what they have is 20 feet long. So each truss is 20 feet long, 12 feet wide, and 12 feet tall. It can typically get between 1 and 200 people an hour.
Wow, that's good.
So I mean, they're moving. It's not like
Okay.
you have to wait in line, get in the balloon, wait for them to go up, look
Right.
around, come down.
Yeah.
It's pretty quick for them to go.
That's
So
good.
we can even add that.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Perfect.
can you remind
Any
me,
other-
did we charge for inflatables last time? I can't remember if it's like a bracelet thing.
Yeah, there's a break.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. Perfect.
It's on. We did make 3,500 and.
I wanna say we sold those for $5.
$5.
Yeah, and I think it was
$5.
all
Yeah.
inclusive.
Yeah, perfect.
With doing Ninja, I have absolutely no qualms with that same price, if even more, just
Okay.
because of what that course does. And especially, I mean, they will allow the littles and the big kids, and you know those bigger kids are going to be doing that all night.
Right.
So
See, I would be kind of different to that.
Me
I
too.
would say, with the exception of the Ninja course, we pay for it
Mhm.
this
Okay.
year.
So
Let the people,
then
don't charge them for the
that.
petting zoo, don't
No.
charge for the inflatables.
Okay.
We would front that.
Okay.
Maybe if you want to charge for the, what is it, $1.50 for a band to do the ninja thing, maybe? I don't know, 'cause
Okay.
I don't know what that looks like. But I think this year for our citizens, we pay for.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Agree with that.
Has to be the same pancake, I know.
Okay.
Pancake breakfast they can pay for as well. I'm just saying the little stuff, your a la carte stuff up there. So the obviously
The
we pay for the
bottom floor?
portalets. They're
Or
not paying
bottom
for the
three?
music. They're not paying for the sound. They're not paying for the petting zoo. They're not paying for the inflatables. They could pay for the pancake and the ninja stuff. But I think after this year, let's give our citizens something to go do. I don't want to say it's on us. It's on them too. They're the ones ultimately paying for it as well.
Yeah. Love it.
And sorry, because I was looking for the email, can you just one more time tell me what it is that you're, with the sponsorships, we're still gonna go out and actively look for them, but what
Correct.
is our budget that you're saying?
We'll get it done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was your
They
answer.
want,
Yeah.
they want those things, and that's what our budget is.
She's like, oh.
I just wanna make sure. Okay, that's just fine.
We'll find it.
Perfect.
Does everybody agree with that? Is that the right way to go?
I agree with that. Yes.
Great job, guys. Good.
Thank you so
Really
much.
good job.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I don't know, what do you think? 2 meetings from now, maybe come back and let us know about the parade, the breakfast, and what you guys come up with, kind of a thing.
Yeah, we can do that.
Cool.
Perfect. Thank you.
Awesome.
Next item on the agenda is council discussion. Does anybody have anything for council?
There's a couple things from the MPO standpoint. So last MPO meeting that we had new elections for chair, vice chair since Don McLeod from Severance resigned back in April. So Mayor Karspeck from Berthoud is the new chair. Scott James, Will County Commissioner, is the new vice chair. Kristen Stevens, Larimer County Commissioner, has been going to be our RAC appointer. There's been some discussion in the MPO for the state. The state wants to implement some type of policy, and it looks like it went from 250 businesses, larger businesses of 250 down to now 100, where they're trying to implement rules and policies about how many days a week you can commute, so they can reduce emissions, and what companies might be exempt, if any, and how this is all going to work out. So it's still in the infant stage, but it's being discussed very heavily at the state level that large companies of 100 or more people, they want to try to reduce emissions, so they're going to encourage and incentivize ride sharing and teleworking so they can keep people up the road. But more to come on that as it still develops. I'll inform as that continues. That's still.
No one else have anything? Jim, you have something over
I
there?
do.
You want to hop in on council discussion?
I know.
Only if the council's finished. I actually do have a couple of key recently hired, and those new staff members are here tonight. I might ask Randy Reedy and Ann Beth Johnson to introduce them.
Proudly from here, I'd like to introduce you to Justine Schulbacher, who just started yesterday.
Hi. Welcome.
She's coming to us with a
Wow.
passion for water conservation and water resources. Approach that she wants to meet people where they are and talk about techniques that work for them. Not just one size fits all. To reduce their water use and of course keep us away. Glad she's here and we'll go.
Welcome.
Welcome.
And this is Caitlin Puga. She is our new city planner. Caitlin joins us with a master's degree in community planning in Denver. And she has 4 years of experience working for the city of Thornton. So she's giving up her commute. She's a Greeley girl. So we are able to bring her back home to her roots. And one of the most exciting things about Caitlin, as soon as we interviewed her, of course, was her desire and enthusiasm to look at process, to look at ways to do things better, simpler, faster for the applicants. Some of those historic walking tours and really getting people more engaged in the community and right. So we're so
Awesome.
excited to have you.
Welcome.
All we have, Mayor.
Okay, thanks. Anyone else? 2-minute break. We'll start at 7. So